We are back, and we welcome you into another edition of The Dynasty, a podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Joining us for the first time, where in the heck have you been? I'm Chris Stewart, along with A.J. McCarron, Trent Richardson, the national champions from the Alabama Crimson Tide. This week on the show, we're going to talk about the new offensive line coach for the Crimson Tide, Adrian Klemm, hired by Alabama in the last couple of weeks. The Tides also wrapped up the nation's number 2 recruiting class, and Bama basketball able to defeat Auburn after beating Texas A&M. So the Tide getting a little momentum as we head to the back half of SEC play. And one thing that can certainly help if Charles Bediako remains eligible, and a court deciding that here very, very soon. So wherever you happen to check out the show, whether it's YouTube, Apple, Spotify, we're glad you're here and hope that you'll rate, review, and share all across social media at The Dynasty Bama. Coach McCarron and Coach Richardson, good to see you both. Let's get right into it about Adrian Klemm, a name that a lot of people are scurrying to learn about, but AJ, it's not a tough guy to find. He's got a very good resume, and I know you don't have a direct relationship with him, but you know the reputation, and it looks like Alabama's found a very good fit.
Yeah, I think he's completely different from what I hear. He's completely different from the past, and I think that is key for this team moving forward, this O-line moving forward, from a sense of he's not as polite-mannered as you recently just had. So, listen, he has a great resume. There's a ton of guys out there in the coaching world that respect the hell out of him and talk about how great of a coach he is, how he gets after the players. He demands a certain level of play, a certain level of nastiness in that play. So that's awesome to hear, because I think that's truly something we've been missing up front for a couple of years now. So to get somebody back in the building like that, that's going to get after the guys and push them to be the best they can be, is definitely big for this team moving forward.
Trent, as a running back, what's your reaction to the things that AJ just said in describing Adrian Klemm?
Well, as a running back, I've only known for my offensive line coaches to get in their offensive line tail. So that's good to hear, knowing that he's not as nice. I've heard he's one of those guys who create yard dogs if they're not. I heard a lot of good news about him. Me and AJ, one of our close friends in the coaching world, he loves the guy. Kind of grew up with him. And so, you hear stuff like that for some guy that is going to always be real to us, about, any guy on the field, any coach out there on the field. I respect that a lot. And it's nothing that I take lightly as a running back, because I'm telling you, you cannot move the ball until you have an offensive line. Yep. So until you have that front five and you control the offensive line, like, you're not the guy that you think you're going to be without the offensive line.
For those of you that have followed our podcast any length of time, our producer, Steve Gordy, great guy, does incredible work behind the scenes for us. And he lays out some suggestions for things on our format each week. And a great question that he's putting in that I got to pass on to you, AJ. If you are Adrian Klemm, what's the first thing you do?
I go in there like Will Ferrell off of Old School and just start launching chairs.
Then say let's don't have anybody freaking out in here.
Yeah. Everybody keep your composure. But I am losing my shit just to kind of set the tone. Listen, they
Yeah.
need it. I mean, um, if we're being honest, and I know there's guys on the team and fans like, oh, we shouldn't be so critical, and everybody gets a trophy, and but like, what are we talking about? Like, you can't watch, and I mean, Trent said it all year. You can't watch this team play and be honest with yourself and take the crimson glasses off and truly watch this O line in the past and say, hey, this is a dominant O line. You can't do it. So I hope they set a standard early, a work ethic, you know, a grit, nastiness about them that other teams just do not want to play and match for 60 minutes and then go out and perform that. So
Trent, it seems to me like, and if you want to jump in on that same thing, go right ahead. But it also wanted to put to you, it seems to me like with uh, the change in the coach, but also with what they're doing with recruiting, you got a lot more size than we have seen on the O line in the past couple of years. That there is a definite philosophical shift that Kalen DeBoer wants to make. Am I reading too much into that, or do you see the same thing?
Um, I just think Caleb he's trying to get his guys in there, right? And so with that, so the standard what's gonna be the standard for that? Like, what's gonna be the mindset of your offensive line? What's gonna be the mindset of your team? And like we've been saying all year, like AJ just said, like it is no way impossible you can be like, this was a Bama offensive line. They came in number 1 rated offensive line in the nation. We had all preseason All-Americans. And that's just not. I'm not trying to come hard down on my team, but I got to be real. Like it wasn't it. And so
Yeah.
I like the moves that he's making, um, and hopefully it live up to what he want to be. Because hey, you have your recruiting class, you have your team, you're doing it the way you want. So let's make sure that the standard be the standard when it comes to being a Bama football team. So like I said, I agree with AJ, and I love everything that this group is doing. It seems like those kids are having fun. I got to meet EJ last week, and a good sized kid, smart kid. Got to talk to him for a minute, and love to be connected with the kid, man, because I think that kid can be something special. Just his mindset, and just talking to him, and just seeing his demeanor, and just seeing just even so far, the change in his body, the change, um, in his demeanor when it comes to he want to be the guy, and
Right.
and he's willing to learn too. So, just being in contact with those guys, man, it means a lot. But I can't wait to see what the spring gonna bring.
AJ, you're a head coach now, and you've got a CEO role, and I understand in your league there you may have to do a little more coaching than the situation um, with a college Division I program like Alabama or even NFL. I'm not sure roster sizes or staff sizes, all that, but there is inherently for a head coach, it's kind of a CEO role, and I think that kind of trickles down, or it seems to, for me anyway. When you're an OC, you've got some of that with your side of the ball. Um, Ryan Grubb's got a background working with offensive linemen. Do you anticipate him being more hands-on, or is this hire a move to make sure he doesn't have to do anything other than work with his position and oversee the offense as a whole?
well, I think it's your duty as an OC if you're familiar with one position, then and that position's not performing the way it's supposed to. It's your duty as the OC or head coach, whoever is in charge of the offense, and then also a background in that position, coaching that position. Like, it's your duty to go out and also help. So I understand it's, you have a lot going on from a scheme standpoint, trying to figure out the best way to make your team successful and allow your team to be successful. But, that's another tough thing in this deal is I'm hoping, and this is just rumblings within, you know, players, coaches that I know, that even some of the things going on last year, it was a little bit of Grubb from a sense of the rotational part of playing so many O linemen. Supposedly there was a little input from him. When guys didn't perform well, it was quick to pull the trigger to get out. I don't know, you know, how truthful that is. It's just what I was told. So everything I've heard about Coach Klemm is he's the guy for the job. He's the hard-nosed guy that we've known in the past to be at Alabama. So hopefully they allow him to go in and do his job and kind of oversee that whole thing and nobody mess with it. So yeah, I tell you what, I wish I was able to have as many positions on my staff as college or the NFL. Hell, I'm the GM, I'm the QB coach. I got 7 other guys with me. It's 8 of us total is all I was allowed. So makes it a little tough at times.
Hey, I don't want to get off topic for what we're doing, but since you mentioned that, run real quick the guys on your staff that you had connections with at Alabama. And for those that don't know, AJ, the head coach of the Birmingham Stallions in the UFL, but I know you've announced recently some guys that are really familiar. But hit us with the names of the guys that were at Alabama, either with you or before or after
you
left there.
So Tyler Siskey is our OC. He was at Alabama my senior year, and then for a while after that, running recruiting, had been a coach, been all over, went back to coaching, but was at Bama for a while. And then you got
Kevin.
Also on offense, you got Todd Watson, who was after me, but I knew Coach Watson from being the head coach at Foley, coaching Julio back in the day, and Robert Lester. He's been big in special teams in college, kind of went to with Pruitt to Tennessee, and then came back to Alabama. So, and then on the defensive side, it's Coach Kevin Shear, was with us there from 2010 to 12, then went to Georgia with Kirby, went to Tennessee with Pruitt, went to the Giants with Joe Judge. He's kind of been all over, but has a background and understanding of, the Alabama defense and how we want to play. And then Damian Square, who we played with, D Square has been great. Was at West Alabama with Cochran and was able to snag him away. And so I'm excited about, the guys that we have from Bama and kind of understanding the mindset that we want to, create for our team and get the guys to buy into.
Every one of those guys you talked about, guys also tied to Coach Saban at one point or another, obviously.
Yep.
Having coached you or played with you during that stretch. It's really good. I just thought that'd be good to share with our audience that may not be as familiar. Real quick, guys, before we head to break, let's, you guys know it as well as I do. When things shifted positively for Alabama under Nick Saban, it's when the recruiting classes became elite and got players such as yourselves to come to Tuscaloosa. That's what it starts with. I know you got to do more than just sign them and get them on campus, but that is absolutely the starting point. That was Coach Saban's primary objective. February signing day has passed. And again, as Stephen pointed out, with very little notice because everything now is kind of tied in with what happens in December. But Bama's number 2 in the nation, according to 24/7 Sports and their composite rankings. E.J. Crowell, number 18 in the country at running back. Cedarian Morgan, number 5 at wide receiver. Those two guys already on campus, and Trent, I know Ryan Grubb's been singing their praises about how mature they are, the mindset they've got, and maybe more so than has been done in the past because the landscape of the game itself. Freshmen are truly asked to step in and be the guy a little sooner. You knew you didn't have to be, you were a man, but you didn't have to always be the man when you first got on campus. Same thing with AJ. But now these guys are frankly asked to do that because of transfers, because of the way everything happens in the game today. Initial thoughts on how things look there, but especially with Crowell and Morgan.
Well, with Crowell, like I said earlier, his mindset is different, man. He got one of those mindsets that I have. He's came from a background, with a big family, and he feels like, hey, I got to take care of this, and I got to make sure that at the end of the day, I leave my all out there. And he's fighting for more than just he just want to play as a freshman. He's fighting to be the guy. He's fighting to let everybody know that at the end of the day, my family got to eat. And so he got that type of mindset, man, that's yard dog, that I will not be denied type mindset. And I'm high on this kid. I think having him and Morgan, seeing Morgan run some routes, seeing him, got big hands, 6'4" guy, big and high jump in track. I think he got second in state or something like that, second or first. But when you got a guy that got hops, that's what we call them, bunnies. You can go up and grab that ball one hand, moss somebody. And I'm talking about this guy here is a Julio Jones type body guy. I want to see him play before I put the marks on him, as a Julio type guy. But man, I've seen this kid, grow. Within the years, because I've sat in the background and kind of watched him when my coaching stuff in high school, so I got to see him a little bit, and just looking how sharp he is, and he's another guy who's got a background to where he's he got to eat, and when you come in like that, like I had a situation, man, where I couldn't, it wasn't for me to be there for 4 years. Like I had kids in high school. I had 2 kids in high school, so I had a different determination. I had a different mindset, and people can tell, and it's funny because, we joke about this all the time. But when Mark first met my, daughters, and when AJ came to my signing day, you got to see like this really means something to him and his family. This something because it means something to him, and he got a lot to take care of. And not saying that the kid, it's all on the kid's shoulders, but when you have a different angle of, the want and the why, is different, man. So I think these kids are going to do pretty good. And I don't think it's about asking these kids to, play right now. I think these kids want to, and they want to be the guy.
Yeah. AJ, how tough is it to step in and be the man instead of just being a man on the roster?
Well, I mean, it's a huge weight on your shoulders. One, because you just don't have the time to experience anything without learning from your own mistakes. So if you can almost sit there and learn from others' mistakes so you don't make those same mistakes, it helps the process, speed up a little bit for you. But also at the same time, I don't see an issue with sitting, right? Like, I think one thing that helped, Trent his freshman year was the fact that he didn't have to go in on third down and know every protection his first year, right?
Yeah.
Like, he had to know North Moon and North Gut and South Gut and Nashville and stuff like that. Like, he wasn't in there to be an every down guy his first year, from a sense of, hey, no Jack and Jill, no rock and load. Not saying that he couldn't, but it helped his process along the way, because they stuck his, big athletic butt in there to go run people over. And then every once in a while mixed in, like, as he got more comfortable from a protection standpoint, and, hey, free release out of the backfield. So, I thought, and hell, maybe Trent feels different, but I thought it helped him a ton his freshman year from a development standpoint, because we weren't asking him to do everything and be perfect on everything. And you allowed him to play free. And as a freshman, as a rookie, like, when you're thinking, you play slow. When you don't think and you're just reacting because it's natural to you, and you have enough games under your belt, or enough practices, or enough reps and understanding of the scheme, the offense, what's being asked of you, like, that helps you a ton. And, you know, some guys can handle it, and it's not like, oh, well, this guy's so much better because he can do this as a freshman and this guy can't. It's just they're on different learning curves right now. And just because this one guy's playing early doesn't mean he doesn't have mistakes or anything, and doesn't mean that this guy over here can't perform at all. It's just two different paths and journeys, and everybody has a different journey. But I think it's less pressure, and when you're not having to be the number one guy and coming in, because you can just learn as you go, and I think that sets up for success way more than getting beat down and going through so many tough battles and losing so much, because it can break you mentally if you allow it.
Talk about it all the time. Different ways to skin a cat. And Curt Cignetti shared a little insight as to how he was able to get that cat looking the way he wanted it to for the national championship team. The Indiana Hoosiers win it all. We'll talk about some of his philosophy, though, in terms of practicing, how they go, how many they go with. Stay with us. We got more coming up on The Dynasty, a podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Welcome back to The Dynasty, a podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide with Trent Richardson and A.J. McCarron. I'm Chris Stewart. Appreciate you being with us. Also hope you'll rate, review, and share wherever you find us on the various social media outlets. Guys, Curt Cignetti, you knew him well long before he got to Indiana and led the Hoosiers to the unthinkable, a football national championship. Now everybody wants to talk to him. Pretty good interview for one thing, but also now everybody wants the insight on how he got it done to make the Hoosiers football national champions. He was recently on a sister podcast of ours, if you will, or the godfather of the podcast here in our family with Sinclair. But the guys we know well, and Urban Meyer and Mark Ingram and Rob Stone, just had Coach Cignetti on with them, and let's hear some comments from the Hoosiers head man.
I'm a little different than a lot of guys. I don't practice a long time. I'm a 25-minute walkthrough guy on Monday and Friday, and we're about an hour 30 to an hour 40 Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, helmet, shoulder pad.
Wow.
I'm the same way in the office. I come in early, organize the day. When we're done with practice, those coaches, they can go home if they want to, and, if their work's done.
Yeah.
And now some of them stay and some of them don't, but I don't walk the halls to see who's here and who isn't. So the one thing I would say is we're pretty efficient in everything we do. And, we'll practice 13 times. I've never practiced 15 times in spring yet. I've never practiced 25 times in fall camp. But we'll get enough done in 13 days.
Is that right?
Yeah, never.
And an hour and a half on the field, you said.
Well, yeah, now spring ball may go 150. you know.
That's gonna get players there off that schedule. You keeping them fresh. You keeping them ready to go. Efficiency.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do is keeping them fresh and healthy, because nobody has depth, and I've never had a team that had enough depth.
All right, when you guys hear that, we know the impact that Coach Saban had on him, but he's also, and to me, it's part of what's made him so successful, guys. We've all seen it. Guys that worked for Coach Saban went somewhere else and tried to be Coach Saban, and they couldn't do it because that's not them. This guy, obviously the son of a coach, yes, he had those 4 years with Coach Saban, but, man, he is clearly doing a lot of things his own way.
Awesome. I love it. It's what makes Coach Saban special and so great was the amount of time he would always put in. Like you said last block, there's different ways to skin a cat and for it to turn out successful. So I'm more, even from my coaching philosophy of, I don't want guys in the building all daggum day. You gotta learn in this era to take care of guys, get them to the game healthy and knowing how to be successful that way. But at the same time, there's a reason, and I think it became so hard for Coach Saban in the end because he was replacing guys each and every year. And it wasn't always because they were getting better jobs, right? Or they were becoming head coaches.
Yeah.
They just couldn't work on that schedule for more than 2 years. And that's being honest, right? Like, there's a reason Kirby was the longest lasting, him and Cochran, longest lasting coaches with Coach Saban for, hell, probably still are. It took a special person to last that long. There's a reason his span, coach's span with Coach Saban was about 2 years. They were 2 years and out. I mean, you're talking about up there all night long.
It's constant.
It's constant. And I think that's just a waste of time where you're missing out on these. I mean, because these coaches, listen, they're coaches, but they're fathers, they're husbands, right? They're uncles. And you got to allow them to get out of the building and live their life too. And I love that about Sig. The fact that he can still have that Saban effect to him, right? With how he carries himself, the looks, the intensity, but he's also his own person and believes in a certain way and goes by that. That's awesome. And I'm happy for Sig and the success he's having.
Trent, what's your reaction to that when you heard it?
Sound like my boy over there traumatized, man. Sound like both of them over here traumatized. Curt and AJ. I definitely agree with Curt, man, because I've been a part of them long days at Alabama, and I've been a part of it in the NFL too, and you know, especially in the off season, like you meet so much. Like, how much are you getting out of it with the attention span? We all know that we're guys, we're dudes, right? And our attention span is not that long, and so being able to get stuff out of it while you're there instead of guys drifting off, falling asleep, sneaking on their phones. I think the system that he adopted is working. And so, hey, if it's working like it is, like, he's taking care of his guys. And then you got to think about this too. He got a team that was already, that, he's already kind of trained up, that he, took, from JMU with him. And so, they was kind of used to his system. And so, saying with that, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing that he created his own system. I mean, Belichick was like that too at the end. I remember Dante used to tell me, like, bro, all season we only go 3 days, and we in and out the building, and they was winning championships. And so whatever it was working, So when you have a system that works and that's just like Nick. Nick had a system that worked for him and his guys, his older guys. But like AJ said, it became so hard for him at the end because you had these younger coaches. You had coaches getting paid way more money. But at the same time, you had, coaches out there with families, wives and stuff too. So it's one of those things to where, like, if I'm the head coach, I don't want my coach to miss a moment with their kid that they can't get back. I get it. You can miss, you have to miss some school stuff. Some stuff, you and your wife, can, both kind of handle. But like games and, different moments, like, I don't want that.
Yep.
And so it's just a new day and age, and whoever out there coaching need to listen and need to try to adopt the system that coach got, and listen, he won the championship, and yeah, he might be back there soon and might win another one.
I had a mutual friend of Coach Saban's tell me, I don't know if it was more than 4 months after Coach had retired, we were talking about, kind of how different it was. I think it was after A-Day, because I had, you may remember I'd shared the story about Coach at what turned out to be his final captain's ceremony at the foot of Denny Chimes, where he was almost loose and relaxed, and it was just so different from any of the others that I had encountered when I had emceed that ceremony in the past, because he was always so regimented, trying to get to, we got to get to the stadium, we got to get to the practice, the A-Day, and he took that seriously, and he understood the value and the importance of doing the ceremony, but he was ready to move on to what was next. So I noticed first of all, we had a conversation, which had never happened, not on that day. But he was a different guy. And I was sharing that with his mutual friend. He said, Chris, he called me and we talked for an hour and a half. He said, he just wanted to talk. Never happened. And he said, but one of the things he talked about is, I wonder if I could have done it differently. Could I have been as successful and not spent the amount of time that I did? He may not have been, because to me, that's the core of it. That's the heart of it. You've got to do what works best for you, or you think what works best for you.
Yep.
Absolutely. There are principles and things that you take from people you respect, you learn from, but you've got to do it your way. And the guys that are able to do that, to take the important things, the core beliefs, and yet make it their own, those tend to be the ones that are most successful, whatever that success looks like. And clearly Curt Cignetti's a guy that's found that. And for those that are worried that Kalen DeBoer won't get where we all want Kalen DeBoer and want Alabama to go, that AJ to me says this guy's true to who he is. The system may be different. The approach may be a little bit different, but that doesn't mean it won't work, because the guy's clearly committed to who he's been, what he's been, shown an ability to adapt in some areas, but knows exactly where he wants to take the program, which is the same place we all want to see it go as well.
Yeah. And we've talked about it, till we're blue in the face, from a sense of, I think we've all been saying it. Is there a certain look that the Alabama fan base wants on the sideline because they had seen it for so long and they want some emotion and everything, which I think Coach DeBoer has done a really good job of adapting to that and trying to get out of his comfort zone because he's not a big, show emotion and kind of get in the face of guys and everything like Coach Saban was. But there's we've said multiple times on here today, there's different ways to skin a cat and to be successful, and you got to be true to yourself for sure. And so I guess with that, me trying to find the way for myself and my team to be successful, and maybe I need to take a little bit of Cignetti's mindset in this thing and not spend so much time on my team and staff. But I'm not following those rules right now, guys. So I haven't been able to keep up with it. But Chris, what's going on with our basketball team? How successful are we going right now?
The conversation a week ago would have been different because they were coming off of the blowout loss at Florida. Tight game in that one until it started to slide at the end of the half. You're down 10, then you're down 25, and ultimately lose it by 23. But and facing them, staring them right in the face off of that is a game at home against the top team in the league at that time, which was Texas A&M, best record anyway. I think people believe Florida was the better team the whole time, and we found that out this weekend. But A&M had the best record, and heck of a game. If you didn't care about the outcome, it was incredibly entertaining. 100-97, Bama's able to hang on and beat or come back really and beat Texas A&M down the stretch. But then you got to go to Auburn, and you know what that always can be, how tough that is. And a year ago, you win in overtime on a last-second shot by Mark Sears, basically a walk-off victory there. But you come back, and it's a different team, different look, familiar name, but a new head coach in Stephen Pearl rather than Bruce. And Bama found a way to get it done. LeBaron Philon's playing so good right now. 25 points. Took care of the basketball, especially in the second half. Bama had 9 first-half turnovers. And I think LeBaron had 3 or 4 of them, which is, he's going to have more given the fact he handles it as much as he does. But too loose with the ball. But, man, that flipped. I think only 2 turnovers in the second half as a team. And Bama wins it 96-92. Another incredible environment. Latrell Wrightsell. The story's been injuries for this team all year. You get one guy fixed, 2 more get broken down for at least a couple of games. And Latrell Wrightsell had to leave the game in the first half, didn't come back. It's a leg deal. Don't know what it is. Don't know how severe. It's not apparently a season-ending deal, but, is it just that game? Is it a week? What's it look like? And when you're sitting there at 6-4 and you're 2 games back out of first, heading into the back half of league play, you got to have all hands on deck. But hopefully that's going to be something that, teams healthier and stronger as the year goes on and the bad luck injury-wise is gone. The other thing that's obvious is Charles Bediako's presence. And as we're talking right now on a Monday, Judge may have come out with the order in Tuscaloosa court about, what's going to happen. Is he going to be eligible? But Judge Daniel Pruitt simply said, I'll have a decision soon. When court ended on Friday, we didn't have any change, so he was able to play against Auburn, had 12 points. There was no matchup for him at the rim. By and large, and he makes a difference. It's a team that's needs healthy bodies, as I just talked about, but he's also a great shot blocker. You don't lose anything when Aiden Sherrill has to go to the bench. Aiden's one of the best shot blockers in the league, but frankly, you got an even bigger option in Bediako when Sherrill goes to the bench. So that's something that's going to be really, really interesting to watch. But to me, guys, and I love for you to chime in on this and just some reaction if you have one. Greg Sankey, apparently, commissioner of the SEC, signed an affidavit in support of the NCAA in this court case. So rather than backing a league member or just staying out of it, he signed an affidavit supporting the NCAA. In your mind, should a conference commissioner step in that situation? Should he have stayed out of it? Or do you think it's whether you agree with with what he did or not, is it even his place to do that, or should that have been left to the NCAA? Either one of you got anything there? Apparently not.
Yeah, it's just it's. I mean, like I said, for us, we love having the guy back, right? But like we always say, it doesn't make it right. Like he's played in the NBA, he's played in NBA G League games, and so to have your commissioner trying to keep hold of his conference, and the integrity of college sports. I think he didn't. It's just hard to say, man. Because I'm gonna be real. I don't think he was wrong for saying this guy shouldn't be able to come back. I think anywhere it went, and I know a lot of Bama fans are gonna hate this. But at the end of the day, man, like right is right, wrong is wrong, and I guess it's a newer day and age, and like if this go through, like is this the new wave? Do we have to accept guys coming back from the NBA playing against these teenagers and these kids? And I know some of these guys are young because they leave early and they get bad advice and all this other stuff. But if I can put my name in this doggone back in college football right now, would that be fair? Or would it be fair if LeBron James came to college football? I mean basketball right now.
Yeah,
that's the question.
And all the circumstances are different. But I think Alabama's claim is that there are guys playing for so many teams right now in the SEC, not just nationally, not just across the country, but within the league itself, that because of how their rules or those leagues are viewed, they are making money. They're professionals in European leagues. To me, money's money. And just because you may not have college ball in Europe, why should we make it easier for foreign players to do this and then come play in college than we are for Americans? And Charles was born in America. He has listed his hometown as Brompton, Ontario, Canada, but was born in Chicago. So, he has dual citizenship. So why are we making it tougher for American kids than we are for the foreign kids? And look, I said this, I think a couple of weeks ago, if you put if you hook Nate Oates up to a lie detector, would he want to see this in college basketball as a whole? Loves Charles. Charles, a great guy. This really ain't about Charles Bediako, because Charles is everything you want to support if you know Charles.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's not about Charles.
It's not a Bediako. It's situation.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I don't know that Nate really wants that in college sports, but we have blown up so many other things. Once you break the rules, and that's Alabama's contention, that it's been broken so many other places and positively impacting so many other teams, why are you going to tell me that we can't break the spirit of your rule as well, and we've got to be sitting here in a hardship. I contend, and I hadn't asked him, but I contend that if Keaton Bristow and a couple other guys were healthy, this never would have come up with Charles. This was two things. This was a need for Alabama, both positionally and just total personnel wise, but also a desire from a former player who's still within his playing window time-wise, because he'd be a fifth-year senior if he had stayed all the way through. Never transferred anywhere else. Yes, he went to the league, but it's not like he transferred to 2 or 3 other schools, or was it a couple before he came to us? Look, this NCAA stuff is loaded with guys who have played 5 years or more at 5 different schools or more. So, am I biased? Of course I am. But at the same time, this is another indication to me of why you've got to ball this thing up and start over again. Whatever that looks like. And I say this, I'm talking about NCAA, the rules, who we're playing against, with, what that looks like. And frankly, that's the part that I hope comes out of this more than anything else, is that we wind up having to get some sanity and some true rules that everybody follows, everybody has to go by.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to the original question, I think it's right for Greg Sankey to speak out against it. But I think it's also right for Greg Sankey to call out the NCAA and tell them how much of a shit show they are. So do both. Because you've created this mess from a sense of allowed this to be a circus. And when you allow it to be a circus, it's hard to rein everybody back in and say, hey, we got to be civilized now. We got to play by the rules. These are the set rules. Like, if nobody knows the set rules, then it's free game for everybody. So I don't blame Charles. I don't blame Nate Oates. I don't blame the colleges doing this, because it's been allowed.
Yeah.
And so if it's going to be allowed and there's no real ruling on it, then you got to take advantage of it. Because if you don't, you're getting fired if you're not winning.
Yeah.
And that's the hard truth of it. So these coaches are going to push the rules. It's the same reason I said tampering. And I said, if I was a coach in college, I'm tampering. Have we seen a ruling on anybody tampering, really? No. I mean, Dabo called out Pete Golding, and I love Ole Miss, and I love Pete. Like, I'm wishing for all the success for them, but I mean, hell, like, Dabo's one of the greatest college football coaches of all time, and he spoke out against it. Has anybody seen any ruling on that? Ty Simpson came out and talked about all the teams that offered him money while he was still under contract didn't enter the portal. Have we seen any ruling on any of those schools that offered him however many millions? So if it's going to be a circus, let's make it a circus. We'll make it the greatest circus of all time. And it'll be such of a shit show that everybody wants to tune in and watch this, because it's like, watch this thing just burn to the ground. I mean, it's free for all. Nobody understands what's going on. Just, hell, go recruit, go sign whoever the hell you want. Like, it's a joke. So I don't blame anybody associated with Alabama on this. And it's right for Greg Sankey, but call them both out. And I've met Greg Sankey multiple times, and I would tell him the same thing to his face. Like, if you're going to rule or say that you want a ruling against Charles in this case, call the NCAA out on creating this circus, or let's do something and separate and figure out how to get away from it. So listen, I don't blame anybody with the University of Alabama and Nate Oates taking advantage of this deal. And hell, I hope Charles gets to play all year until they figure out the actual rules in this thing. So guess what? It's nobody to blame other than NCAA in this deal.
Yeah, I definitely agree with y'all when it comes to that. Like we said, it's not Charles that we mad at. It ain't Bama that we mad at. It's the situation. Like, you know, let's not get it twisted. I love him being there, getting rebounds and blocking shots and all this other stuff. But then at the end of the day, it's not set rules, like AJ just said. And so when you don't have that set rules, like, hey, everybody ain't gonna be doing this, and I can't, and I'm not gonna be doing this.
Right.
I got to be the guy rocking a straight line, and y'all not. Nah, that's crazy. That we ain't doing that. And so go back to the tampering. It ain't a set rule on that yet either. So the NCAA have.
It's not the rules; it's the enforcement of them.
Yeah, it's the
I think
enforcement.
that's the argument. Is that you're not enforcing it there? Why should you enforce it here?
Yeah,
and whatever here and there are, there's multiple examples.
Yeah, don't make me wear a suit and tie and y'all just got a T-shirt on. Nah, we ain't doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk final segment about the Super Bowl. Bama guys win, Bama guys lose. That's the luxury of having Bama guys everywhere. That's what we'll discuss as we wrap things up here on The Dynasty, a podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Wrapping things up on another edition of The Dynasty, a podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Hope you'll rate, review, and share wherever you find us across the various social media platforms. And you can indeed find us everywhere, thedynastybama.com. And again, rate us at The Dynasty Bama. Guys, wrapping things up for the week with a little Super Bowl talk. Just about every roster has got multiple Alabama guys on them, and no difference this time. Bama led all schools with 7 former players on Super Bowl rosters. The Seahawks get winners with Josh Jobe, Jalen Milroe as a backup in his rookie year, Robbie Oots, and Jaron Reed. Jobe 7 tackles, a TFL pass deflection. Even the team that was on the wrong side of it had Bama representation with Christian Barmore, C.J. Dupree, and Anthony Jennings playing for the Patriots. What made this team, or the defense especially, Trent, in your mind, what made the defense for the Seahawks so dominant?
They made them uncomfortable, man. I think Jaron Big Reed did a great job yesterday. Even Cole, but them guys made that quarterback uncomfortable. Made him move out the box. Brum blitzes. We had a guy from Pensacola, Witherspoon. Actually played on one of my little league teams that I had when I was in the league. I think he had 2 sacks or something like that. But it's guys like this, man. If you look at that defense, man, they was breathtaking yesterday. They special teams played a big part, and we preach that all the time. Like they field position was crazy. When it came to the putting Patriots back, on the goal line when they punting the ball, they had a hell of a punter. And then they went up by I think 9 points in the first quarter or the second quarter.
They were up 9-0.
Yeah, 9-0 for
going into halftime.
Yeah, for a while I thought we weren't gonna see the Patriots get on the board. Of course they didn't score until the fourth quarter.
Late third, early fourth, whichever
something
it was.
like that. But I just think, man, that defense, man, was just determined to, hey, this is not going to happen like the last time we played y'all. And so that defense there, man, they was swarming to the ball. So I think they came out with a couple of picks at the end or something like that. I know they had one at the end, a pick at the end. They dropped a couple. But that team was, man, they was prepared for everything. It looked like they knew everything Drake was going to throw at them before he knew.
AJ, the transformation of Sam Darnold's career has been pretty interesting to watch. I was trying to remember, was it not the year or 2 years after you graduated maybe that he was the starter at USC? Mm-hmm. Was he not the guy at USC when Bama beat him like 52-6 or whatever?
Yep.
Running for his life that day, and from that to being, a great career despite that day at SC. And has to go through a lot of stuff. but finally gets to be a Super Bowl champion. Do you think league, is that going to make maybe other teams, other franchises be a little more patient when they believe in their guy, or is patience something that is only going to work in a handful of places around that league?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks, but patience in the NFL just doesn't happen. I mean, you'll hear people talk about it, but I mean, hell, prime example, Sam went 14-3 for Minnesota. Had 2 rough games at the end of the year, last game of the season, and playoff game, and they ship him off, and they're quick to move to JJ McCarthy, and he hasn't stayed healthy, and it hasn't worked out for them either. So, Sam, I just love the fact that he's had success now. I think it's more key that you have to be in the right organization, in the right situation, also when it comes to the NFL to be successful, right? And I think it's a prime example of how many guys have been put in a bad organization or a bad system that doesn't allow them and is not set up for them to be successful because of philosophy. And it could be scheme on offense or scheme on defense, whatever it is. But for him to have that success now is awesome. Super proud of him. And he's come a long ways from being with the New York Jets, seeing Ghost, and that being put out on social media and on TV and all over the world, to now the only Ghost he sees is that Lombardi trophy that he'll be able to have in his house. So I'm super proud of him. I just love the fact that he's found success and is thriving now.
Well, when we come back next week, next show, we're going to talk more about the NFL draft that's coming up and how it looks for Alabama guys. We'll continue to follow the Bama basketball team as they try to get it flipped, or continue, maybe is a better way to put it, the momentum that they've gained in the last week as they go now into the back half of SEC play and look towards the postseason as well. And we'll also continue to talk about the current Tide football team as we get closer to the start of spring practice, which will indeed be right around the corner. But that's going to do it for this week. For AJ, for Trent, for our producer, Steve Gorgie, I'm Chris Stewart. Thanks for joining us on The Dynasty, a podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide.